Good evening, everybody. I hope we're all doing well tonight in the tabernacle of the Lord. Looks like we all are. I want to first of all send my appreciation, gratitude over to Pastor Rod Parsley and the First Family for allowing me to be here this evening. It's always an honor, always a pleasure. And also, I want to extend my appreciation to Pastor Ramirez for also being an integral part of me being here this evening. Tonight, the sermon topic is Are You Dressed in Holiness? Are you dressed in holiness? And I just wanted to talk a little bit about a personal testimony that I had that when I was a new Christian, I had just turned 24 and come out of the life of sin and in darkness like we all had. I was working at a local department store while I was working on my bachelor's degree. I was at KCU, Go Knights, and I had just gotten saved. You know the excitement that you feel when you just get saved. You just feel such a cleansing, such a purging, such a purifying in your heart and your life. You know, you want to tell everybody that you encounter. So I ran into a lady that we had known as a family friend who was one of the groups of people who measure, I guess you could say, holiness by the outward appearance. No makeup, no no pants, that kind of thing. And I remember running into her on the grocery department side that one particular day, and I had just come back from a break and clocked back in, and I was telling her about my experience, and I was so excited. And I remember she looked at me, and she just immediately just cast judgment on me. She referred to me as the prostitute from Gomer and Hosea, and told me that I needed to wash my face and that pants, were not acceptable, and my hair was shorter at the time. That was not acceptable, and blah blah blah. And so I that just crushed every ounce of enthusiasm, every ounce of you know happiness and joy that I had. And I remember I politely excused myself and went on about my to my station to go back to work. And I remember that stuck with me, like, I mean, just for the longest time. And I remember when she would come into the store, after that, I would go to great lengths to avoid her. I mean, if I saw her, I would duck. I'd put my head down and just duck. I went to great lengths to avoid, being confronted by her again. And it was years later, just here recently, that I went to the vet, and she happened to be there with a dog of hers and her kids. And I was forced, to speak because there's only one door at the vet. So I remember feeling so uncomfortable, and we just spoke, and we kept it light and kept it, not heavy, and went on. But still to this day, that still resonates with me. So I want to talk to you tonight about holiness and what exactly is holiness. Is it something that we can discern from the outside? Is it an inward type thing? And what exactly does God define, holiness? And so I was studying and praying, and the first thing that comes to my mind is about David when he was going to be anointed and appointed as a replacement for Saul. A little bit of background there. Israel had a king. His name was Saul. It was the first one they ever had. He was very handsome, very appealing to the naked eye, the outside, very gifted and courageous. But God was going to remove him from his position because he had disobeyed God. He was commissioned to fight against the Amalekites, and God told him to wipe them out. But rather than be obedient to the Lord, he was almost there, but not 100%. And as we know, 100% is nothing in the eyes of the Lord. He wants everything, all of us, every part of our heart. And I guess he spared the king and the best of the sheep and cattle. So Samuel was sent to confront Saul about his disobedience. And then Samuel was sent to a town called Bethlehem to find God's replacement from the home of Jesse, which ended up being his son David. But now, before David was actually selected, we went through several other sons. Some were tall in stature, some were handsome, some were pleasing to the eye, and all this kind of things, all the kind of things that we look for when we look for perfection, we look for, a holiness, that kind of thing. And each time each one of those sons was rejected until the Lord revealed it through Samuel that David was the one. And so this is the verse I was focusing on tonight because for sake of time. 1 Samuel 16:7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Um, how do men measure holiness? Well, I'm reminded of Acts 1:24, when Judas was being replaced by Matthias, they said, "You, Lord, who knows the hearts of all, show us which of these two you have chosen." In this particular verse, sounds like they had kind of discerned that, the Lord would be the one, that they were aware, of what they could see on the outside doesn't necessarily reflect what's on the inside. So holiness is not men, not wearing shorts, long hair, jewelry. Holiness is not, men or women being forbidden to wear pants, makeup, jewelry, short hair, colored hair, red dresses. I know my grandmother had a friend that you weren't allowed to play cards. You couldn't even play with a deck of cards because you're going to go to hell. Can't go to the movies. Now, I would advise you, obviously, if you're going to go to a movie, make sure it's something that, is not rated R with nudity and that kind of thing in it. But, there's a lot of good Christian movies that have been on lately on the movies, and, I see no issue with going to see those. And then, how does God measure holiness? 1 Peter 1:16 reminds us, "You shall be holy, for I am holy." And then Hebrews 12:4 warns us that without holiness no man shall see God. God measures holiness through obedience to his word, motive, like Luke 6:45 says, "For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks." Loving one another, setting apart, being set apart. Are you set apart? Be not conformed to the world, but be renewed by the, transformed by the renewing of your mind. Sorry, trying to hurry and get it all out. And so, God's standards of holiness and man's standards of holiness are completely the opposite, as opposite as night and day. And so, when I was in that position at the store where I worked at, when I was working on my bachelor's degree, I was judged on how holy I looked on the inside by what I was wearing on the outside. If I remember correctly, that day I was wearing a smock and a pair of pants. And like I said, my hair was a little bit shorter, had a little bit more makeup on, but, I was being judged. And I'm sure we've all been there in different locations or different places in our life, that, even if you go to the grocery store and you go to pick up something and you don't have your hair done or whatever, people look at you, we're all judged. So why does God look at the heart? Well, Proverbs 4:23 tells us, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." Psalm 26:2 says, "Test me, Lord, and try me, examine my mind." And Matthew 5:8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." The whole meaning behind holiness is to have right standing, to be pure before the Lord in your heart. And I believe that if you have pureness in your heart, pureness in your mind, if you're guarding your gates, if you're seeking daily the Lord through prayer, through Bible reading, and that these inward transformations will be shown and manifested on the outside. The fruits of the Spirit. We'll see your fruit. The condition of your heart will always reflect the condition of your life. And transformational change can only take place in the heart. Then it manifests through our thoughts, our talk, our behavior, and who we seek to pattern our life after. Because Jesus tells us that if we love him, we will follow his commandments. And I'm always reminded in Isaiah, your heart reflects the real you. When he was in the presence of the Lord, he said, "Woe is me, for I am undone." He realized, at that moment, the condition of his heart and the condition of where he stood before the Lord. I want to do an altar call tonight. I love the prayer of David in Psalm 51 when he says, "Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." I pray that myself daily. And I absolutely love that. It's just a cleansing, a purging. I know there are some here tonight that maybe you've never even been saved. You've never even known the Lord. You have no idea what holiness is. You have no clue what we're talking about. And then there's those of you who need to rededicate. Maybe you've once lived a holy life and you've got, torn away, strayed away by the wrong crowd, the wrong temptations, the wrong things that you've given into. And then there are those who just want a deeper consecration. You realize what holiness is. You've been striving for it on a daily basis, but you just want to go deeper. So on the count of 5, I'm going to call down these 3 groups of people. I want people seeking salvation here on the left, people seeking for rededication in the middle, and then people who just want a deeper consecration, deeper walk with holiness, pursuing holiness to the Lord on my far right. So in Jesus' name, amen.